For more than 170 years, one castle has been the British royal family's most closely guarded secret. Now, this isn't your typical palace for state dinners or a big show of power. Now, this is their private sanctuary. We're talking, of course, about Balmoral Castle, the massive Highland estate that, up until right now, has been almost completely off-limits to the public.
You know, this quote from the Queen's late cousin, Margaret Rhodes, just nails it. It perfectly captures what Balmoral was all about. It wasn't about the pomp and circumstance. It was about getting away from it all. It was a whole other world, far from the constant eye of the public, a place where they could just be a family.
I mean, think about it. While a place like Buckingham Palace stands for the duty of the monarch, Balmoral has always been about the person behind the crown. It's a place for muddy boots, long walks in the rain, and just quiet moments by the River Dee. It was their own cherished, private world.
And that's the big question we're looking at today. Because under King Charles III, the castle's fiercely protected privacy, well, it's changing. For the very first time, people can now step inside the actual private rooms. So this shift from a secret hideaway to a public attraction is exactly what we're going to dive into.
Okay, so to really get what makes Balmoral so special, we first have to understand why it's so different from, say, Windsor Castle. And the whole answer comes down to one simple but absolutely critical distinction.
And this right here is crucial. Palaces like Buckingham Palace belong to the crown. They're basically state property. But Balmoral is totally different. It's a private home personally owned by the monarch. That means it can be passed down, changed, or even sold if they wanted to. This personal ownership is the key to its entire character. It's theirs.
And that personal connection, it runs deep. Princess Eugenie's words really say it all. For the late Queen Elizabeth II, it was way more than just a vacation spot. It was where she was genuinely happy. It's where she spent her final days, and by all accounts, it was her favorite place on the entire planet.
So, how did this all even begin? Well, the story of Balmoral is really a love story, and not just between a queen and her prince, but between the entire royal family and Scotland itself. Before Balmoral was even a thought, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert visited Scotland back in 1842, and they came back in 1844 to stay at a place called Blair Castle, and they were just completely swept away by the raw, wild beauty of the Highlands. To them, it felt like a pure, simple escape, far from all the pressures of modern life. After that trip, they were absolutely hooked. So in 1852, Prince Albert went ahead and bought the Balmoral estate for Queen Victoria. But the castle that was already there was just too small for their growing family, so they immediately started planning a brand new one. Victoria herself laid the foundation stone in 1853, and by 1856, the incredible castle we see today was finished.
And you can't talk about Balmoral without talking about Prince Albert. He was the real driving force here. In fact, Victoria lovingly called him Albert the Creator. He was involved in every single detail, working with an architect named William Smith to get that Scots baronial style just right, you know, that romantic fairy tale look with all the tall turrets. He even insisted on using local granite, making sure the castle looked like it grew right out of the Highland landscape itself.
But here's the thing about Balmoral. It's so much more than just the building. To really understand why they love it so much, you have to get your head around the massive scale of the estate.
50,000 acres. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's over 78 square miles. It's basically a vast, private kingdom hidden away inside the Cairngorms National Park, giving them almost complete privacy and endless space to just roam.
So what does 50,000 acres get you? Well, it gets you a private world. You've got formal gardens, a water garden, the famous River Dee for salmon fishing, and just miles and miles of forests and farmland. Queen Victoria built 11 stone monuments called cairns to mark big family events. The family still goes to the local church, Craffy Kirk. And scattered all over the estate are these smaller cottages, like one called Tom Nagar, which has been a quiet little hideaway for royals like William and Kate over the years.
And all of this brings us to today, and to the single biggest change in Balmoral's long history. After being a totally private haven for more than a century and a half, the doors to the main castle are finally, slowly, creaking open. So the king has rolled out these new exclusive interior tours, but with a pretty hefty price tag, a lot of people are asking, what do you actually get to see? Is this a way to make some money, or maybe an attempt to modernize the monarchy? And does the reality actually live up to all the mystery?
All right, let's break down what you actually get for your money. The ticket is £100 per person, and that gets you a guided tour that lasts about 45 minutes. You get to see around 6 or 7 rooms, all on the ground floor, like the dining rooms and the library. But a couple of big things to know. You don't get to go upstairs at all, and taking pictures inside is a huge no-no.
People who have been on the tour say it's like stepping back in time. The inside is pretty much exactly as Prince Albert and Queen Victoria wanted it. It's just an explosion of tartans, floral patterns, and this very specific pine-colored woodwork. It really reflects that Victorian obsession with all things Scottish. It is, in every way, a historic house, not a modern one.
But there's one part of that historic decor that has turned out to be really, jarring for some modern visitors. This quote from a YouTuber who took the tour kind of highlights a very strong and apparently not uncommon reaction to what's inside.
So what's causing that kind of reaction? Stag heads. And not just one or two. We're talking dozens and dozens of them. The entrance hall, the corridors, they're lined with hunting trophies, most of them from Prince Albert's time, since he was a huge hunter. And while it's definitely historically accurate, this overwhelming display of taxidermy can be pretty unsettling, and it's a huge talking point for anyone who takes the tour.
So where does that leave us? Balmoral today is this fascinating mix of contradictions. It's a historic sanctuary that's now wrestling with a brand new identity as a pretty high-end tourist attraction.
So you've really got this clear contrast. On one hand, the appeal is obvious. You're walking through a place that's dripping with royal history, surrounded by some of the most beautiful scenery you can imagine. It's an exclusive peek behind the curtain. But on the other hand, the reality for some visitors is a very expensive ticket for a very short tour, with a, let's just say, a decorative style that isn't for everyone.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. Balmoral is now being asked to be two things at once: the beloved private home that the royal family cherishes, and a commercial attraction that has to meet the expectations of people paying a lot of money to be there.
And that really leaves us with the final big question. How do you preserve the actual soul of a place like Balmoral? Its history, its privacy, its whole vibe, while also opening it up to the rest of the world. Finding that balance is going to be the great challenge for this new chapter in the story of the Sovereign's Highland Retreat.